This is the podcast overview for week 8. We will be covering chapter 8, Development Across the Lifespan. So here is your to-do list for the week, and let's just go over a couple of things before I go down the list here. You're going to be reading chapter 8, and you're also going to be reading HOC number 5.3 called How Moral Are You? And it has to do with Kohlberg's stages of morality across the early lifespan and into adulthood. So those are their readings. Your objectives for chapter 8 are here. You can click here and I go over each one of these in detail. Just wanted to point out that the textbook covers not only physical development, but also psychosocial development, and then obviously the development of morality. You're going to be introduced to a number of big names in the developmental area of psychology, and it kind of breaks up development by the physical and sensory changes that a baby through infant, toddler is going to experience, and then into early childhood development where we see more of the cognitive development occurring, and you'll learn about Piaget and his stages of cognitive development, and sort of what takes place in each one of those areas, and if something goes wrong during one of those developmental stages, what would the result be, what would happen. And then we'll move into then adolescence, where we'll see more of Erik Erikson's theories of psychosocial development, which occur more in adolescence when individuals figuring out their identity and where they fit. Erikson actually has stages of psychosexual development. Psychosocial. Psychosexual is Freud. We haven't gotten to him yet. Psychosocial development, and it really spans the whole lifespan. So you'll see stages that start very early on and go all the way through to older adulthood, elderly population. Then you'll see the morality, and we'll get into some of Kubler-Ross's stages of death and dying, and later on in the end of lifespan there. But for a little bit more information, you can click here and I talk about each of those. Here are your lecture slides for this week. And then I have 2 videos here. They're the crash course videos. This one has to do, it's called Monkeys and Morality. So you're going to see cognitive development in a little bit of this, but you're going to be introduced to Harlow's studies with the rhesus monkeys, looking at attachment theory, and we gained a lot from his research on the rhesus monkeys with surrogate mothers, and how they attach to their mothers, what they look for in attachment. And we learned a lot from that for human attachment and understanding that. And then this also talks about Kohlberg and stages of morality. And there's some other stuff sort of mixed in there. And then this is a crash course on adolescent development in particular, and some of the unique occurrences during this time. And you'll hear again about Piaget and Erikson, among others. I've included the cite as you write instructions because I see that some people are still struggling with APA formatting, which is required for citing your sources. So make sure you're checking that. If you've been getting that feedback in your grade for your discussion, then this is where you should be going and checking and making sure you're citing correctly. So your discussion this week, you'll want to incorporate the reading HOC 5.3 as well as chapter 8 into your responses. You're going to be explaining why you feel Kohlberg states that level 3, stage 6 morality in his hierarchy of morality, is not necessarily attained by everyone. Why is this stage hard to get to? Support your reasoning with some examples from the readings and some concepts and citation from the readings. Then secondly, consider the looting, destruction, and violence that happened after George Floyd's death. During that period, there was a lot of chaos going on, a lot happening. And so I want you to analyze what happened using Kohlberg's level of morality. Explain how a 7-year-old, a 16-year-old, and an adult would apply their moral reasoning to that situation. Okay, so this would require understanding what Kohlberg says happens for a 7-year-old when they're morally trying to figure out a dilemma. They're trying to figure out a social dilemma or a moral dilemma. What would a 7-year-old do? How would they explain that? So if they knew about this, how might they explain it? And then how would a 16-year-old explain it, and how would an adult explain it? It's going to be different for each, okay? And because their cognitive abilities differ, they're not, a 7-year-old's not yet where a 16-year-old is, and despite what teens think, a 16-year-old is not yet where an adult is in terms of how they reason things out necessarily. And then lastly, one major criticism of Kohlberg's work on morality is that he studied morality using quote-unquote proposed moral dilemmas rather than how people really responded during real-life moral predicaments. So he didn't capture people who were going through real life moral dilemmas. He kind of posed fake moral dilemmas, little scenarios, and asked people, well, how would you respond if this were to happen to you? So what was a major criticism about his methodology there? And how do you feel about that? How could a researcher go about actually studying morality in real life? How would someone capture real life moral dilemmas and be able to quantify that and use it to inform us as to what a person is grappling with when they are trying to determine morality? So that is your discussion for the week, and then you have a quiz on the chapter, and that will finish off your week. So please let me know again this week if you have any questions.